Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm Susan Benford, the chair-elect of Philanos, and it's such a pleasure today to have three Philanos affiliates discussing Against the Odds, Growing Membership in a Pandemic. I know we're all anxious to hear how they did that, and let me then just go ahead and turn it over to Jennifer.
Great, thank you, Susan. We've got a terrific program for you today. Three of us, as she mentioned, will be here to share our experiences in what has been quite a challenging period of time. We will begin with a panel discussion for about 30 minutes, and then we'll leave 15 minutes for questions and comments. Please use the chat function at the bottom of your screen to share your questions and thoughts. We are interested, and we will incorporate those as we go through our program today. Well, we do have three exceptional ladies today. The first is Buffy Beaudoin-Schwartz, who is the Executive Director of the Women's Giving Circle of Howard County in Maryland. Me, I'm Jennifer Bennett, President of Impact San Antonio, and rounding out our wonderful group is Maureen Romito, who is Executive Director of Impact Las Vegas. You know, each of our organizations is a bit different, but we share a common purpose of coming together as a group of caring women who really want to make a difference in our communities and who believe that the impact we can make together is far greater by collaborating. Now I'll turn it over to Buffy, who will review the objectives for our session today.
Thanks, Jennifer, and good afternoon, everyone. Today, we're going to share ideas for embracing change and how we each pivoted quickly to keep our organizations relevant and responsive, ideas for boosting member recruitment and retention that we implemented during the pandemic, but really that are relevant at any time, and how we each effectively used virtual channels to drive results. So now I'm going to start us off. The Women's Giving Circle of Howard County, Maryland, which is in between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, was founded in 2002 with 15 founding members. I'm proud to be one of them, as well as a past chair, and now serving as our first executive director. We're a field of interest fund at the Community Foundation of Howard County. We started almost 20 years ago with multiple giving levels and by building an endowment. And today we have over 1,000 members who've given in the last 20 years at one time or another, have awarded almost $750,000 in grants to date, and we've built an over $1 million endowment. And our funding is focused on programs that benefit women and girls, and we're in year 2 of a 5-year effort to fully integrate a DEI lens and a framework into all of our work. So Maureen, let's hear about Impact Las Vegas.
Thank you so much, Buffy, and good afternoon to everybody. Impact Las Vegas is awarding its 8th grant this next month. We started with a founding group of 13 women, presenting a $13,000 grant in 2014. We've been slowly growing year after year, and we ended 2020 with 67 members. This June, we will have awarded a total of $288,000 in grants to 8 Southern Nevada nonprofit organizations, plus we've given an additional $20,000 plus to finalists. We are a completely volunteer-run, standalone 501c3 organization, and our grant process each year begins with our grant award announcement that happens in early January. Letters of inquiry are then received in early February, from which our volunteer members select 16 nonprofits to submit full grant applications. Volunteer members again score and then evaluate the full applications in April, conduct site visits in May with our semifinalists, resulting in a finalist presentation at our annual meeting and voting in early June. Jennifer, now let's hear from you.
Thanks, Maureen. Like Impact Las Vegas, Impact San Antonio is also an all-volunteer-run 501c3, and our women members evaluate grants and vote on where our money goes to. We're now in our 17th year. We started out with 25 women in one lady's living room, with each donating $1,000. So our first grant was $25,000 in 2005. Our growth has been very significant over time through lots of grassroots efforts. Last year, we awarded $490,000 in grants across the 5 focus areas you see off to the right, and our cumulative total in grants awarded since our founding is over $4.2 million. We hope to hit a $500,000 target this year, as we did in 2018 and 2019, which enables us to award at least one high impact grant of $100,000 in each of our focus areas. Well, now that you've gotten a sense of our organizations, let me transition us into our panel discussion, which will cover the following topics: our initial pandemic response, the pivots we all made to adapt to the new reality, some insight into the tech platforms we've used, new member recruitment techniques, and then we'll wrap up with lessons learned. Buffy will kick us off with how we all pivoted.
Great, thanks, Jennifer. So we all operated with a similar sense of urgency in determining how we would adapt to the pandemic. Last March, we each quickly convened our boards of directors to plan, and we all immediately made clear public statements about what our plans were going to be. And we each made specific pivots to best meet our current membership, engage new members, and support our community. So the Women's Giving Circle of Howard County did 3 things in our pivot that did just that. We changed our grant guidelines, we partnered with other funders, and we utilized Google Docs to organize and engage our leadership. I'm going to give you a few examples of how this worked for us. When the pandemic hit, we immediately broadened the scope of our grant-making guidelines to be as responsive as possible to community needs through our Emergency Response Network, or what we call the ERN. The ERN was created over 18 years ago in response to the desire of many of our members to provide direct help to women in need in our community. Here's how it works. Our ERN network of nonprofit partners know that they can reach out to us with a request of up to $1,000 to assist a woman client with an emergency need. When we receive and approve the request, we then send it to our ERN email list of about 1,500 women and invite donations of any size to help support the women in need. Typically within an hour or less, it's pretty amazing, we raise enough funds and we shut down the request. The funds are then sent to our nonprofit partner, and they then help their client address their emergency. Since the inception of the ERN, we have raised over $100,000 to assist over 100 women and their families. Last March, to address the escalating pandemic, we made the decision to extend the scope of the ERN for a period of time to assist broader needs and more people in our community. We not only continued to help individual women through the ERN, but we sent requests in excess of $1,000 to directly fund our nonprofit partners as they worked to support the community with basic needs. So since last March, we've raised over $50,000 just through our ERN network to support our nonprofit partners through the ERN. Extending the grant-making scope and engaging the community in the ERN on behalf of our nonprofit partners on the ground during the pandemic has resulted in new members to the Women's Giving Circle participating in the ERN and increased visibility within our community. When the pandemic began, we also partnered with other funders in our community for greater impact by creating what we call HoCoRespond.com. We immediately joined forces with the Community Foundation of Howard County, the Horizon Foundation, and United Way of Central Maryland to create HoCoRespond. And we did so to support Howard County nonprofits on the front line, focusing on assisting with food security, housing, childcare, and healthcare. And we aim to streamline the process of quickly raising and distributing funds to our nonprofit partners. We informed our members and the broader community about our partnership efforts and encouraged them to participate in giving. And to date, we have jointly awarded 46 grants totaling $608,000 to 34 nonprofits supporting critical basic needs. We were the smallest funder at the table, but we were happy to be invited and to jointly announce these grants. And our partnership efforts through HoCoRespond to quickly pivot to support the community during the pandemic resulted in new members to the Women's Giving Circle and increased visibility within the community and ongoing and future collaborative partnership opportunities. So when the pandemic started, we relied heavily on Google Docs, pretty basic functionality, but for us, it was on the newer side to organize and engage our leadership and our committee members, both before, during, and after our virtual meetings. And we found that this has allowed more women to engage and participate on a regular basis. And in fact, We recently made a policy change so that even when it's safe to gather again in person, we will conduct the majority of our business virtually moving forward, our advisory board, executive, and our committee meetings. We have 4 types of events that we hold throughout the year: giving, learning, networking, and celebrating. And we decided that we're going to focus our in-person and our quality time together during those. Our goal is on inclusivity and having more diverse voices at the virtual table by providing a more equitable platform for women to engage in our efforts. And we hope that this public shift in policy will encourage other organizations in our community to consider doing the same, resulting in a more diverse group of women engaging in volunteer efforts across the board. We recently made a proactive public statement as a women's organization regarding this new policy, mentioning it as part of our DEI efforts to include more and more diverse voices at the table. And we believe that our effective use of Google Docs, just one form of technology out there for all of us, to organize during the pandemic has resulted in more engaged members and has been a catalyst in our new policy moving forward. So now we'll hear from Jennifer about how her giving circle has adapted.
Great, thanks, Buffy. You know, Impact San Antonio also made some shifts. First, we adjusted our grant-making guidelines based on results from a survey we sent out to our past grant applicants and some outreach phone calls too. I'll tell you, we had some very healthy debate among our board members about whether we should depart from our modeling of awarding grants just for new programs or to expand existing programs. To really say, well, let's sustain some existing programs. The other thing we discussed was whether we should flex to offer crisis funding. You know, in the end, we realized that we didn't have the experience in crisis funding, and there were several other large, well-connected and well-known organizations that stepped up to fill that need. So instead, we modified our structure to be a bit more responsive to current conditions. For example, we added categories that allowed funds to be used specifically for COVID response. So that included expenses for things like implementing health and safety protocols, adjustments to physical space, cleaning and disinfecting services, and technology needed to shift from in-person to virtual delivery of services. In addition, we lowered our high impact grant amount from $100,000 to $75,000 for 2020 only. Actually, we expected to get fewer members, and we wanted to continue our ability to award one high impact grant in each of our 5 focus areas. The other thing we did is we expanded the percent of the grant that could be used for unrestricted funding, and that went up from 10% to 30%. We heard a resounding bit of feedback from our applicants that this was really going to be essential for them to keep operating. And lastly, we allowed agencies to ask for funds to sustain proven existing programs versus just the other 2 categories that we normally fund. The result of all of this was that we had the largest amount of grant applications in our history last year at 139, and feedback from those agencies as they went through the application process was very positive. All right, now I'd like to move on to focus on some communications. As we all know, the health and financial crises, with all the implications for families and their finances, triggered a very robust conversation among our board about how we wanted to show up to our members and potential members. We decided to dial up even more our focus on sharing success stories to demonstrate the power of our model of collective philanthropy using the theme of coloring our community with bright spots of hope. We added a regular feature to our monthly newsletter to share results from our grants, as well as how the agencies are continuing to adapt to COVID as it rolls out. And when a grant has been completed, we bring our members and agencies together to mark the occasion and celebrate. Members have told us that it's really important for them to stay informed because it influences their decision to renew. So this is a fun slide. I like this one a lot, and this is our interesting use of technology. What you see on this page is how this bright spots of hope shows up, and it represents our 16 years of awarding grants in our service area. This is from Google Maps, and each one of those paint splotches represents where the agency is based that has gotten a grant from us. It lends itself really well to illustrating our legacy of giving. And when you click on any given paint splotch, you'll see a pop-up screen with that red header at the top, and that will share the name of the agency, its mission, the amount of the grant and the year of the grant, what the funding was for, and a link to their website. So, you know, all of us experience so much competition from other organizations looking for philanthropic dollars. So one effective way we've used to stand out from the others is to use testimonials from across our community. This includes key political leaders, like our mayor, other nonprofit leaders, past Impact SA grant recipients, and of course, our members. Our recruitment kickoff in February this year put 15 of our strongest supporters on video, sharing their reasons for why they endorse our organization. These multiple perspectives captured various facets of our value and appealed to a broad range of our target audience. In addition, we created 15 short videos, that's the image to the right, from this event that we're pushing out each week in this final month of our recruiting season. All of these are posted to our YouTube channel, so our members can access them at any time. To conclude, the circumstances we all faced forced us to reevaluate everything we were doing and how we were doing it. Our results are encouraging. With 10 days to go in our recruiting season, we are within striking distance of our $500,000 goal. No single initiative was going to make it happen, and it's taking every part of our organization to be flexible and to think creatively about how we move forward. Now Maureen will discuss shifts that her organization made.
Thank you, Jennifer. The pandemic, as we know it, all caused all of us to pivot and adapt. When the shutdowns occurred for us in Impact Las Vegas, we were already fully engaged in our grant application process. After discussion as a board and with our applicants, it was decided that it was really too late at that point to change our process, which led to our biggest pivot, going virtual. Our first concern was about retaining the current members we had, particularly our newest members who were experiencing our processes for the very first time. And then our second concern was about trying to grow the membership for this next cycle. So what we did, priority one, was staying connected with our members, focusing on retention. Our grant applications were scored and evaluated individually, but this was something we had always done, but groups then had to meet via phone, using personal Zoom accounts, or using our tool that we had as GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting is a tool that we've used in the past for our remote board meetings, and we used it once for a nonprofit information session. We encouraged our experienced members to mentor with the newer members in their group throughout the process and pairing them up within a group so that they felt a little more confident about what they were trying to do. Site visits were all held virtually, and that actually resulted in a higher volunteer member participation than we had ever experienced in the past. And despite technical glitches and perhaps not getting maybe to see the full picture of our semifinalists, our members thought it was a great alternative. You know, historically, we've also held 3 or 4 events during the year. In early 2020, however, we had just started adding members-only cocktails and conversation networking events. Because of the pandemic, we had to quickly pivot these to virtual events, focusing on touching base and getting to know each other virtually. They became theme sessions with prepared discussion items led by board members. We also began virtual education sessions, where this year we focused on coaching our members about the realities of the nonprofit world in general, hearing directly from the community nonprofit leaders, and some sessions about our own organization's operations and processes. These were all done using our GoToMeeting tool. We took the opportunity in one of these sessions to actually walk our participating members through the operational and financial realities of running Impact Las Vegas, particularly as an all-volunteer organization, showing why financial and volunteer help was critical to our growth and success. And this session actually had a side benefit of increasing our members' unrestricted operational donations to the organization. These 3 of our sessions were devoted to tips and techniques for evaluating grant applicants, understanding grant applicant financials, and helpful hints for comparing large versus small nonprofits. All were enthusiastically received, particularly by our newer members. And we believe that our virtual events helped us to achieve the highest member retention rate we've ever had. Normally, our retention of members year to year has been on average, it's ranged from a high of 70 percentage points to the mid 80s, but we ended 2020 with 91% retention rate of membership. You know, the shifts we made in our communication strategies and methods also contributed to our retention numbers. Luckily, when the shutdowns hit, our board president lived near me and we were able to get together and quickly film what we called fireside chats. And these chats were designed to address concerns and as well as to inform our members about our decisions and the actions we were taking in light of the pandemic. These were posted on our YouTube channel and were well received by our members. I already mentioned our virtual getting to know you events, and these events were themed, such as we did a women's right to vote celebration last August, where our members shared which women most influenced them. And our November theme was about gratitude, our February theme about greatest loves, for example. These became a great way to get to know each other while interacting from home. We invited our grant partners to virtual meetings to give us updates on how the pandemic was affecting them, information we also shared in our fireside chat videos. And we shared with all of our members membership contact information, encouraging them to reach out to each other and stay in touch via phone, email, or even personal Zoom accounts. Our board members reached out to our newer members to touch base and encourage participation in events. In fact, our newer members were probably the strongest participants we had in all of our events this past year, which is a great segue to discussing our new member recruitment techniques. Jennifer?
Thanks, Maureen. Yes, let's focus next on member recruitment. A lot of what we've already discussed works for recruitment, whether it's a pandemic or not. But here are some additional specific things that we're doing. Our anchor strategy year after year remains using members to help us recruit new members, since they're our strongest advocates. We've learned to ask more directly for help in this way, and it's working. As an example, several members have held parties either virtually or in their homes and invited women who were from their network. I held one, and I invited women I had met through a local nonprofit board service training program I had participated in. In just the last month, 13 women have signed up, representing 8 new memberships and $8,000 toward grants. And I did it via Zoom. I think we've all learned to harness technology in new ways as a result of COVID. Another membership option we offer is to allow 2 to 4 women to share a membership of $1,000. We have found that this attracts younger members, as well as women wanting to, say, try us out before becoming individual members. This has been a huge driver of our growth since we introduced it in 2016. And lastly, offering extended payment plans has a lot of appeal and does overcome the hurdle for some who'd prefer spreading out the payments versus paying our full $1,000 all at once. Now I'd like to touch on diversity next. Our organization is predominantly older white women, and that is a function of how we were formed and the recruitment strategies we've pursued over the years. We recognize that our demographics are not aligned with our city's makeup. San Antonio, in fact, we have the majority of our population is Hispanic at 64%, with 25% white, 6% Black, and 2% Asian. Our membership, based on those answering surveys in 2020, is around 86% white. And in terms of age, we skew older, with the vast majority older than 50. Last year, we decided to develop new ways to grow that embrace the diversity of our community. This will help us bring more perspectives to the table and benefit all aspects of how we operate, as well as how we evaluate grant proposals. In broadening our outreach, we can build awareness and cultivate new potential members. We have been connecting with a variety of organizations to reach beyond our world that include those organizations with diverse memberships that have civic-minded charters like ours, plus community-hosted events appealing to cross sections of our city. That's what's showing here, Dream Week. city council officials with deep connections into their communities, and finally, chambers of commerce. We understand that strategies like this take time, and it starts with building trust through relationships to encourage new groups of women to consider us as part of their philanthropic plans. We're hoping that through these more focused actions, we will be able to chart new growth that brings in many more women with more diverse life experiences than our organization has now. Maureen, what did you discover?
Well, thanks, Jennifer. Growth has always been a challenge for Impact Las Vegas. And I'm not going to lie, this past year actually surprised us. We think that by focusing more on retention, staying in touch and connected with our membership rather than focusing on recruiting, we ended up seeing better new member recruitment results than we had anticipated happening. I mean, earlier this year, we surveyed our members. We focused primarily on our events and our communications over the past year, but we also asked for educational session suggestions and their comfort level about meeting in person this coming June for our annual meeting, and also how they felt about new member recruitment. Our membership recruitment events normally were our in-home membership information socials, obviously became virtual this past year. These have been social events where everybody kind of visiting at first and networking, getting to know each other individually. And then a current member would give a presentation about our organization and a past grant recipient speak about their experience with us. Meeting virtual actually eliminated that walk around the room possibility, and getting to meet and talk with current and potential members portion of that event. So we added a getting to know you question at the beginning of the virtual event. We would go around the Zoom meeting or the GoToMeeting room, and each person would speak and share information about themselves related to their prepared questions. We discovered that in this environment, everyone got to meet everyone else in attendance rather than being just a haphazard event, meet and greet kind of thing before, where some of the newcomers met some of the current members and vice versa. The potential new members felt more comfortable and involved from the very beginning of the relationship, and the participating current members felt more comfortable sharing with the entire group why they had joined the organization. This more formal icebreaker process is something we're definitely going to be keeping, and when we start holding live socials again, because the feedback has been extremely positive from both new and our older members. Another big feedback result was that most of our members, if not all of them, were now getting to be virtual fatigued. You know, their lives have been way too full of way too many Zoom meetings that go on way too long. And we're planning to build a mixture, therefore, of both live and virtual events going forward, keeping our virtual events much shorter and maybe figuring out ways to do both by live streaming in some way. Let's hear now from Buffy, and she tell us about her successful efforts. Buffy?
Great, thanks, Maureen. Well, throughout the pandemic, we focused on two efforts that have resulted in new members: our diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and our focus on what we call Sheroes Among Us. So we continue to enhance our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts throughout the pandemic. We have a DEI committee that continued to build upon and implement our 5-year plan to develop a DEI lens and framework for all of our efforts. As part of that work, we launched what we call Our Giving, Our Stories. It was a series celebrating Black Philanthropy Month last August with 31 daily profiles highlighting women philanthropists in our community. And we recently launched our new year-long Our Giving, Our Stories series, building off of our Black Philanthropy Month efforts that's designed to elevate the voices of women philanthropists in our community on a monthly basis. In April, we highlighted a philanthropist in celebration of Earth Day. This month, we highlighted a philanthropist in celebration of Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. And next month, we'll do so in celebration of LGBTQIA+ Pride Month, and so on. It's all on our website for you to see if you're interested, and it's all resulted in new members supporting our DEI efforts and engaging in the Women's Giving Circle because of them. So during the pandemic, we put a focus on a 6-month series, or 6-month focus on a series called Sheroes Among Us, starting last fall through this March as part of our 2021 annual celebration. We created this beautiful permanent virtual Shero mosaic. And we decided to do this recognizing that women have been disproportionately affected during the pandemic those who've gone above and beyond in supporting our community. We invited the community to highlight their sheroes for their efforts. And over 500 sheroes among us are now on our permanent virtual mosaic that's part of our website and our giving circle forevermore. And it was a wonderful opportunity to engage both longtime supporters and prospective members in the work of the Women's Giving Circle. That's resulted in new members and a lot of increased visibility. So what did we learn from this disruptive phase of each of our organization's growth? I think the overarching lesson that we learned at the Women's Giving Circle about our efforts to engage members during the pandemic is that building trust through our grant making, our partnerships, our DEI focus, our communications, and even technology during the pandemic has been an important part of our growth this past year. Broadening our grant making scope has underscored that we're here for our nonprofit partners and that we're all in this together. Developing our partnerships with the funding community through hocorespond.com has enhanced our opportunities to work collectively in the future. And continuing our efforts to integrate a DEI lens and framework into our work has helped us to better support our community and engage more women in our efforts. Focusing on women in our community through our Giving Our Stories and the Sheroes Among Us virtual mosaic has helped to elevate the role of women's philanthropy, especially during the pandemic. And utilizing Google Docs to organize during the pandemic has resulted in more engaged members, more engaged leaders, and more voices at our virtual table. We all know that building trust isn't easy, and it's not something that happens overnight. But we hope to continue to learn from our efforts, strengthen our relationships among our local funding community, among our nonprofit partners, and among our growing membership, so we can have a greater impact together than we might otherwise have alone. The true strength and excitement that brings all of us to our giving circles and to the collective giving movement. It's been a challenging year, and we're grateful for our thoughtful, caring, generous, and engaged leadership. And a shout out to Barb Van Winkle, our chair, who's here today, and our engaged membership. So Jennifer, what did you learn?
Oh, we learned a lot, and thanks for those great insights, Buffy. Many of those apply to us as well. My organization learned quite a lot. I think for us, the central set of learnings was also to be flexible, open-minded, and to embrace technology to survive in the virtual world. I think all of us experience that adapting to change and innovating is very messy and very time consuming. For a long time, we didn't have our tried and true in-person gatherings to accomplish our goals. We all had our meltdowns in different ways and learned to support one another as we adjusted to the new reality. And some of the things we tried, we will continue because they've proven to be effective. I'll finish by saying that there's always going to be some members who have issues. In our experience, some pushed back on our lowering our grant amount from 100,000 to 75,000. Others felt we should have awarded all the grant money right away without any usage restrictions. The important thing is to invite women to share their perspectives and be as inclusive as possible in the process and explain the rationale for decisions clearly and transparently. Despite the challenges, we were pleased with the results we had in 2020 and how it's looking for us in 2021. We continue to collaborate effectively and pivot as needed to remain an enduring source of support for our community. All right, Maureen, your turn.
Wow, really incredible, Buffy and Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. I know we all agree last year was challenging. We did, like you, both of you and all of us, I'm sure, learn some good lessons. Number one, I think we learned to be flexible and adaptable. Having multiple communication methods is critical, and we are going to continue to make our video updates for our members. It may not happen as often, but they will continue. We're also going to do some more short, quick surveys to gather feedback from our members. One thing we did in 2020 is we created a member portal on our website, and that's definitely something that we'll continue to use to share information, particularly about our operations and volunteer activities. The Getting to Know You events were a hit, so those will continue, and we will take some of the conversation starter ideas we learned in our virtual sessions and adapt them for in-person sessions. For our educational sessions, last year's focus was educating our members about operations, our processes, and how to be better evaluators. We also focused on our grant partners and how they're coping during the pandemic. This coming year, however, the consensus is wanting to know more about the needs in our community, specifically knowing more about what needs have been ignored or put on the back burner while all of the focus has been on just survival this past year or on food and housing assistance. One of the other lessons we confirmed, having everything done virtually truly shine the spotlight on the technically challenged members we have. We're now exploring options for those members, either having other technically competent members mentor them or doing some rudimentary training sessions. We're still exploring solutions. These were the members we were most disconnected from, so we want to make sure we have a variety of communication options going forward. Well, we hope all of you have absorbed a few takeaways from what you can put into practice within your own organization from our presentations today. We'd now like to open it up to questions and comments. I know they've been coming in, so please type them into chat as you think about it. And I'm going to read out a couple and ask our panelists to respond. So let's get started. I know we had one coming up in our Q&A about, can you talk more about networking with city officials? Did they become members at all? And I think that was for Jennifer.
Yes, our first approach was to broaden awareness of Impact San Antonio. We have tended also, in addition to not having as much perhaps ethnic and racial diversity, we haven't had as much geographic diversity within our big city. So what we did is we established appointments with the 10 district city council leaders who have been elected. We presented Impact and we talked about what we do. And we also presented the agencies within their geographic territories that we had funded over time. And in a lot of cases, they were not aware of us. And so that was goal one that we achieved. Then the second opportunity for some of them, they offered up their newsletters as a way for us to promote who we were and our events that are coming up. I think our next year plan will more aggressively go after this group. And then lastly, as far as them becoming members, that didn't happen immediately, but I think with exposure over time, there certainly is potential. They are very public figures, and so I think everybody wants a piece of them. But I think it's their networks and who they know in the community that they can connect us to that is actually going to be the most powerful way that those relationships can be built over time.
Thanks, Jennifer. That's great. We also got a question for all the panelists from Christine asking, how does a shared membership work? And I'll know you've got those, Jennifer, but I'll start off because we also have those in Las Vegas. Our shared memberships are 2 members, and they share 1 vote for the grant voting at the end. So they have to agree as 2 individuals what they're going to be voting on, because only 1 vote, so that they only have 1 vote like a full member does. We also asked for one of them to serve as kind of the senior person, and that's who we consider the member, and we just have the other one. They can be as involved in all of the volunteer activities, everything else, but they're just the other shared member. Jennifer, how about you?
Similar in many respects. So our membership, as I mentioned, is $1,000 per year. We enable up to 4 women. So from 2 to 4 women can join, and then they will split that $1,000 among them. Like what Maureen was saying, it's 1 membership, 1 vote. And so if you've got 4 women, you've got to figure out how to come to consensus on where you would like the money to go. So often that leads to some really good, healthy debate. And it's also a great way for members to engage with each other. Some of these women know each other and form these groups, and others we have helped facilitate partnerships. So regardless of how they've come together, it is a great way for bringing the membership together. And as Maureen said as well, all the members can participate in most every volunteer opportunity, but we do limit the women who can serve on our grant review committees once a year to 1 person per membership, because you can only have so many women per committee to be able to work effectively in evaluating all those grants. So what we recommend is that they rotate that responsibility if they are in a shared membership each year.
Great, thank
I'll
you.
just say that this is something that we're planning on integrating next year. So it's clearly a popular way, whether people are already doing it or thinking about it. So I appreciate hearing what you're both doing as well.
Thank you. Well, Buffy, our next question comes to you from Sandy Cook. She wants to know, how did you surface the people for the Our Giving Our Stories?
Yeah, we actually have a committee, the OGOS, or Our Giving Our Stories Committee, that has done a lot of thoughtful work thinking about an equitable process to both get the word out and also as nominations came in for women to be able to think about, well, for Black Philanthropy Month, that was our first foray into doing this. And now with our new year-long series, we're getting the word out as far and wide as we can about what we are highlighting each month in terms of the focus of a woman's giving. And then we have an online format for people to nominate women in their life who may be appropriate. And then the committee goes through the process of evaluating and making that choice.
Wonderful. Well, I think this one's for all of us as panelists. Question about knowing people often resist change. How did your members react to all the changes that were made? I guess I could start with not so much okay, just as Jennifer, I think, said in her presentation that you can't please everybody. But I was actually surprised how resilient they all were. And it is a special circumstance of what happened with the pandemic in the past year. So I think they anticipated there had to be changes in order for things to work. So I was very pleased with how well most of them adjusted to it and accepted it. How about the rest of you, Buffy or Jennifer?
I
I'll
would
say
say the
that-
same in the main, that women became more flexible as time went on, as they realized that the ways we used to do things were not going to work. And we still had aggressive goals to help our community by bringing in members and getting our existing members to renew. We all really had to focus and say, how are we going to accomplish these things? And yes, there was healthy debate. And yes, there was frustration as we tried some things that didn't always work as well as we would have hoped, or just took much longer than we would have expected. But I think it was a great lesson over time in the fact that there are many different ways to accomplish things. And in person isn't just like always the best thing. Sometimes virtual can work just as well or even better. I'll give an example of our grant review process. When we get to the point of committee members getting together and then going on site visits, we had a lot more participation because all of that was held virtually. Nearly all committee members attended those committee meetings virtually. Nearly all of them were able to attend most of the site visit presentations when we engaged the agencies. That doesn't normally happen at that level if we are meeting in person.
Yeah, and I'll
Buffy?
say, especially as we're all women's giving circles, it was really great to see, how all of us as women were able to quickly adapt our leadership, our members, our partners on the ground, mostly women, not all, but mostly women leading our nonprofit organizations. I mean, I think, it was a little challenging, of course, for all of us at times, but overall, I think our nonprofit partners and our members and our leadership were really pleased with the way we were able to pivot and be flexible and nimble, and mostly know that we were all working together, doing the best we can to try to make a difference in our community.
Great. Well, we've got one more question, but I want to get to quickly with Buffy. I think we have a question about when you partner with other funders, were there challenges to seating some decision-making authority? Since, in many groups, your members normally would determine the grant recipients. Did it happen that the funders you were working with wanted to take some control of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And luckily, the four of us have worked together in the past. We, in fact, are a fund of the Community Foundation of Howard County, of which was one of the four partners. But no, we did not find that there were real challenges, although it did take, we were trying to, build the plane as we were flying it. So we were trying to build this partnership, publicize HOCO, respond.com. And then behind the scenes, as we're doing that, try to figure out the best role that each of us could play. And so luckily we were able to figure out that the Community Foundation, for example, took on the grant making portion of all the funds coming in. They have their roots into the ground. They've got, the experience in doing that. And the rest of us took on different roles as well. But it did take a moment. This happened quickly, as we all know, and we were running as fast as we could. But the good news is that when we figured it out, we were able to do a lot of good in the community. And as I said earlier, we now are kind of a cohesive unit that is talking about doing a number of other things together as a group of 4 funders.
Great, thank you. And we have one more question, I think for you, Buffy, again, about how does Google Docs used with the membership? Can you expand upon how it works, who has access, what do you share, and how does access keep them more engaged? I know we've got just a couple, like a minute or so left, so if you want to give us a quick summary.
Okay, great. For us, I was specifically referring to our leadership and our committees. And, in the past, when we would all be meeting in person, we'd either print out information, or when we were trying to be more eco-friendly, send things in advance, but then kind of talk through agendas or what have you. We found that utilizing Google Docs to organize our information internally, send out an agenda virtually, link over and over again to all the information within Google Docs for our committees or our leadership to follow along and quickly make decisions and then follow up. It was just a really, and still is a fabulous tool for us anyway, to be able to organize ourselves internally and then engage our leaders along the way to make decisions and help move the organization forward.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for participating, and thank you for your thoughtful questions and comments. Jennifer, how about you now wrap it all up for us here?
All right, Maureen, Buffy, what a pleasure working with you over these past couple months to get ready. Awesome experience. I know we will connect again in the future. Look at us, women connecting through philanthropy today. And all of you who worked with us and listened to our session today, thank you for attending. It's been a great pleasure spending the last hour with you, sharing our approaches, our results, and lessons learned as we all work to grow our membership during this pandemic. If there are further questions or you have a desire to connect with us, please note our contact information on the slide. We'll also use the We Give Summit community forum to post answers to any questions we didn't have time to address today. We celebrate you and wish you all the best in your efforts to bring women together to make a difference in your communities. Enjoy the rest of the summit. And now I'll turn it back over to Susan for some final announcements.
The only final announcement is thank you very much to the 3 of you. We knew this was going to be an inspiring session, and indeed it was. So thank you for the effort you put into this and for all the wonderful ideas you've given other affiliates and attendees about how to retain and grow membership. Thanks so much, everybody.